In recent times, there has been more opportunities to literally get involved with playing many iconic and classic retro style games. And with the current edition of the PlayStation Plus, with all of its upgrades, and now with the PlayStation Plus Premium, we are now getting access to many classic games that reached great heights of success on the original PlayStation console. And one of the recent games that has been added to the catalogue of the ever-growing list is Ridge Racer Type 4, which needs no introduction, if I'll be honest, because everybody that knows about the PlayStation knows about the Ridge Racer series, and many of you out there have probably played this game, if not owned it, and probably still play it even today, myself included. Having the chance to get to play Ridge Racer back in the day when it came out in 1999, which as of recording this video, it's hard to believe that the game is currently like 24 years old, which is crazy when you think about it. And it was a real hidden gem in terms of just gaming in general. It was one of the best racing games, and it still is considered as one of the best racing games today, and it was easily one of the most visually impressive and stunning games to ever grace the PlayStation console back in the day. But how does it hold up today when you look at it now compared to years gone by, and especially with the evolution of graphics and visuals? Well, the truth is with this game is it is a classic, but the visuals in the game are almost timeless, if you will pardon the pun, because in reality, like, while it is a game that has 20 plus years behind it, in my own personal opinion, I still think it's an incredible and beautiful looking game. And the fact that now that we can play it today with the likes of the PlayStation Plus Premium, whether you have a PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 4 console, I'm going to be honest, you need to have this game on your list to play. Or if you haven't played it yet, just add it at least and get round to it when you get a chance. You won't be disappointed, because this was the last Ridge Racer game to be released on the original PlayStation, and to many it is the best one. It's definitely the best visually, as graphically it's right up there with the likes of Gran Turismo in some cases, in many intents and purposes, especially with the environmental surroundings and visuals. It's as good as Gran Turismo in a lot of respects to it, and it still holds really, really well today. Now, it does take a bit of getting used to. The controls will change and alter depending on the various teams and cars that you end up using in the game, which, mind you, there's a lot of cars to unlock in this game. But in saying that, many of them are the same type of car, they're just different variations depending on the teams that you're in, but you have to play through with each team. But you also have to choose a different team dynamic or type in terms of manufacturers, because the manufacturers that you will acquire will give you access to different models and ranges of cars, and they all have their own unique characteristics and handling attributes, so that in itself is enough to keep you playing the game. Now, it is overly bigger in terms of its vast size with the likes of tracks and other features when you compare it to the original 3 Ridge Racer or Ridge Racer games that were on the PS1. But this game right here is considered by many to be the greatest Ridge Racer game in the series, and pretty much of all time. While we did have later adaptations on the PS2 and Ridge Racer 7 on the PS3, they're all iconic games in their own right, but very few of them ever reached the heights of success that Ridge Racer Type 4 managed to reach. I know I have covered a video on the game previously on the channel, but with it being added to the PS5, I thought it was a good idea to revisit the game, because even for myself, I just wanted to play it on a modern system, especially with all of the settings that you can change to change all of the filters, and just to see how the game visually stacks up and how it adapts to the play style with the likes of the modern systems. And honestly, it holds up really, really well. It's very easy to pick up and play, get into, and the control elements, it uses more so the analog control systems more so than anything else, so that will take a little bit of getting used to. Even from my own personal experience, looking back, I always kind of struggled playing racing games using analog controls on older style of games. Well, apart from Gran Turismo 1 and 2, I think that the analog setup for using and playing with those games was spot on. That was the best way to play it back then. But to play other games, it definitely took a while, and this here was no exception. So it took me a few races to get familiar with using the analog over using the D-pad. But now, after spending a couple of days playing it on and off and really getting back into it, I'm beginning to master it all over again, and it's just as much fun as I remember, in fairness. It's just such an iconic game. Like I said, it is timeless. And what makes this game so good is its pick up and play appeal, like all of the Ridge Racer games in the series. What makes them so unique is their value that you can literally just pick up and play casually casually. If you want to just do a few races, you can do that and then move on to something else. The funny thing is, these games are that good, and especially with this type of game, you'll always find yourself going back to it. If you're a fan of old PS1 racing games, but even if you're just a fan of racing games in general, and like myself, this is one of those games that from time to time you will go back to. And now the fact is that you can play it on your PS5 is even more of an excuse to go back and do that. I couldn't wait to get it installed on the computer and load it up, and I ended up playing it for a couple of hours all over again, no problem. And that's just the unique appeal with these type of games. And for me personally, I would sooner go back to play these older classics than even more modern games, with the exception of a few. But generally, if I had my pick, I would always go back to play the older classic games, especially like sort of the PS1 games, because again, the PS1 is my favourite console, and it has for me some of the best and greatest games of all time on it, and they're just as great to play today as they've ever been. Yes, if you can mind the controls, but it's like anything else. If you put a bit of time into it, it won't take long for you to master it, and you will definitely have a good excuse. The one advantage you do have with playing on the PS5 is you have the rewind feature. So if you do mess up, which truthfully I messed up a lot, I'm still getting the hang of certain cars and handling physics and features, but at least knowing that you have the rewind feature there, it makes it a wee bit easier, so you can double back, so you don't have to start the entirety of the race all over again, that you can just rewind it back a few segments and then play from that point on, and then try to perfect whatever corner or drift that you're trying to implement, so that you can at least gain an advantage or try to win the race, because sometimes that's all it takes, because one mistake can literally cost you the race in this game. That's how close and how difficult it can be at times, but still, it's a hidden gem. It's one of the greatest racing games of all time. It probably is the best Ridge Racer game ever created, and now the fact it's on the PS5, like I said, just go back and play it. There's no ifs or buts about it, and this is just but one of many iconic games that are starting to appear now on modern systems, so I really can't wait, and I'm excited to see what other types of games will come out on the console at a later stage. But in the meantime, there's no reason why you can't put some time into this here, and there's a lot in this game for you to unlock, so it will keep you playing for a while if that is something you're looking for as well. So I highly recommend that you just go and check it out. It's an iconic, timeless classic that has stood the test of time and will continue to do so in the future, and it's a game that you will always find yourself going back to every now and then. And now that you can play it through your PS5, it's so easy. That's the best thing about it. You don't have to worry about booting up your old PlayStation console, which I know to many they would rather to play it that way, and that's totally fine. But for those that don't have access to all of those old elements or hardware, this is the perfect alternative to play a classic in all its glory. So yeah, just have at it and just enjoy it for what it is. It still holds up really well today. That's the really cool thing about it, and it's just as playable now as it's ever been. So what are you waiting for? Go back and play this classic while it's there. So I'd love to know your thoughts of this, being able to play Ridge Racer Type 4 now on likes of your PS5, or do you even prefer to play it on just the original console with the original setup? I'd love to hear your opinions of what you think the comparisons are. Which would be your favourite way to play the game in general? So be sure to share it down in the comments below. And if you have enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more content around other types of games from the PS1 that have been released on the PS5, then you can check out the playlist on screen to see more of those games in action, as I will be covering more games in the future. And if you want to be updated of any future videos around these type of topics, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and again hit that bell to be updated when videos will be released. And as always, keep those gaming memories alive.